It's over there. I gain knowledge from these. So I'm all about experiences rather than books, unless it's a good Nora Roberts. I don't read Nora Roberts, but whatever. So next slide. So this is us in the rock band. People still ask me, well, you say I identify as a rock star. No. We played around Detroit for a while, and then I haven't played in like 3 years. So Genentech has a video out right now. It's all about me and really telling my story and finally being honest about not being as compliant as I should have been. I'm looking at you and thinking about your daughter. She's going to be fine. But at that age, I kind of stopped doing my meds for a little bit and was too focused on the band. So you live and you learn. But this was the band. This is kind of how we started Rock CF with these rock concerts and getting people together to raise money and awareness for CF. So that's what we did. But again, I wasn't my healthiest at the time. Playing drums in a smoky bar in Detroit. You load the drums in at 7 o'clock and you're there until 2 in the morning in a smoky bar. That's not really that good for you. So I can kind of correlate that with my poor health. So my pulmonary function was really low and I was not really taking care of myself. Not doing my treatments like I should have been and in smoky bars a lot. So that's not good. And also not exercising. So we'll jump forward. Maybe one more. Okay, so 2004 when I was 22-ish, I was so sick that I finally talked to social workers and they said, you might want to think about Social Security disability. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but okay. So we look into it and I qualified, right? And this was cool because it was extra income, but it's also setting that tone where you're kind of sick. And are you ever going to be able to get off of Social Security and disability, or is this me for the rest of my life, right? I could work, but you could only make $1,100 a month, $1,000 a month. So that was my life for the next like 10 years. And if you, I think, click through, that didn't help with my mental state, right? There we go, that's a good one. So I was so sick that I was on disability. I'm in the hospital 2, 3, 4 times a year. My pulmonary function's 50, maybe 60% on a good day. I didn't know what I could do with my life. Like, what was my future? Am I just going to ride this out, play in the band, and live on Social Security the rest of my life? Because that's what a lot of people were doing with CF my age at home. So I said, no. After years of this, I said, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of being sick. There's more that I can do. Then I finally started doing my treatments more regularly like I should have. But what else can I do? And the solution is exercise. And I'm glad that's a round table today because I'm very huge about exercise. So you'll see a couch potato here. I was actually the couch that the potato is sitting on. I was so inactive at the time. Because you remember the pictures of me as a very active kid, right? But in my teens, my lung function started to drop and I couldn't keep up with kids, right? So I had these dreams of playing in the NBA before there was a WNBA. Who doesn't love the WNBA? Nobody? Perfect. Come on, they're great. College basketball is better. But I was so active. I was a great basketball player, but I didn't grow. And then I just couldn't keep up with the other kids. So I kind of fell off the exercise wagon. Just like your daughter, I'm happy to hear, 19, and she's hitting the gym. I tried that a couple times when I was 19, 20, and it just didn't work out because I couldn't do it. And I got discouraged. And then I decided, you know what, I'm totally sick of being sick. I have to do something. So that's when the exercise really, I got serious about it. I changed my diet to a more whole food-based, organic situation. Now vegetarian, which I get stuff heck from my other CF friends. But things are working. So when I first started running, I think next slide. I mean, I'm not even going to tell you. I think I'll show you a little video. I think we got those dialed up. Without running, I would probably not be here today. My doctor, he says that like running is saving my life. Cystic fibrosis, it's something that you're born with. It causes your body to produce this really thick and sticky mucus. The mucus in the lungs traps bacteria. Then the bacteria turns into lung infections. And that's kind of like why people die from CF is lung issues. They told my parents I wouldn't live long enough to graduate from high school. I wouldn't be here today without running. We just run through the streets of Detroit, through the old neighborhoods, and people just want to get rid of them and tear them down, but they don't see the opportunities. That's the way I see life. It's like, what can I do with what's in front of me? I was a couch potato. I was so inactive. My lung function was probably 50 to 60%. I was in the hospital 2 to 3 times a year treating lung infections. I was playing drums in a rock band, and I can kind of consider that exercise. Then I decided, I'm sick of being sick. What can I do to change my life? So I started running. When I first started, I set out to run 2 miles. In reality, I ran a block, stopped at the stop sign, bent over and just started coughing and spitting everywhere. And after 3 months of training, my lung function climbed up to like 70%. So that was like, okay, you have to do this. And I don't know what kept me going. I guess I wanted to really prove to myself that I could do it. So I talk about how I started running. And you know how like sometimes you have these lofty goals and you think automatically you're going to achieve them without like maybe saving money in your bank account. You're like, I'm going to maybe save lots of money. And then you look at the end of the month like, well, I didn't save anything. Great. But I did get a new pair of shoes. So with running, I had this idea of going out and just busting 2 miles, right? I'm like, I'm going to just go bust 2 miles, come back. It's going to be fantastic. In reality, I went out there and I got about a block and I stopped and was coughing and spitting like everywhere. Like I'm thinking neighbors are peeking through their blinds. Like, what is going on out there? It was not pretty, but I didn't stop there. I was like, there's a fire hydrant. I think I'm going to walk to that fire hydrant, and then I'm going to run to the next block. Then I'm going to walk the next block, then I'm going to run the next block. So it took about 4 months to build up to that 2-mile run. And once I did, I was like, this is sweet. And when I ran my first mile, it was so cool, because I did it maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but after 12 years of not being able to really run a mile, it was a huge accomplishment, right? So I kept adding on and adding on. I did my first 5K, then my first 10K, then my first half marathon, which was funny because who wants to run 13 miles? I don't know. And now who wants to run 26 miles? Well, I guess I do. It's for charity. Yep. But when my old elementary school gym teacher, and he was also my middle school gym teacher, called me one day. I hadn't seen him in like a decade. And he's like, Em, I want to train you for a half marathon. And I'm like, well, that sounds cute, Kev, but I'm not sure, Coach, this is going to be cute. So I print out this training program, and I look at like a Saturday, and it's like 10-mile run. I'm like, who is running 10 miles? That is ludicrous, right? So we did. We went out there, and afterward, he took me to breakfast, and we had like pancakes. And I went to the bathroom, and I just saw like salt crystals all over my face. Because you know we got that little extra salty sweat, right? So I wiped it off. I was like, okay, this was like that was cool. That was like another battle scar, was the salt crystals. But I loved it. I loved the 10-mile run. So then I did the first half, and since then, I've done like 12 or 15 half marathons. I can't really count that well. A half iron distance triathlon, which is crazy. You like, I don't know how to swim. I grew up on an island. Seriously, I really did. Not Gilligan's Island, but like an island in the Detroit River. I don't know how to swim forward, but I can like hang out in water for hours. So I had somebody swim for me who also had CF, and then he tagged me, and I biked the 56 miles, and then ran the 13.1 in North Carolina. Then I've done like 112-mile bike rides. And just in September, Jerry Cahill and I, which I think is the next slide, we biked from Bahaba. Is that how you say it? Yeah, and we stayed in Bangor. Bangor, and biked all the way down to New York City. So that was like fundraising. It was for our health, and it was also for awareness about how cool exercise can be for you. So now on my plate is my first full marathon in November, so that will be really fun. If you guys don't hear from me ever again, it was a pleasure meeting you all. I might not just dip in and do a pizza place in New York and just call that good. But yeah, so the coolest thing, I think next slide is the PFTs. Within 3 months of training, yeah, we're dressed as Tom Selleck. We can talk about that later. My PFTs jumped just within 3 months of training up to like 74, which was the highest I can remember seeing them like ever, which is so cool. And that's just with running, and I was starting to cycle at the time too. So I was training for a bike ride from Detroit to Chicago, and like I'd go out for 20-mile training rides and think that I just like ran a marathon, and I drink like 8 Gatorades. I mean, now it's like 20 miles is like a morning ride before work. So it's just cool to see the progression, but then feel how much better I feel. I feel like a whole different person. Just with the exercise, I was out of the hospital 18 months rather than 2 to 3 times, 4 times a year. So there is something to exercise, and it's good for everybody. It's good to move, but with CF, it's great for our lungs, of course. But there's also studies out there that show that it actually affects your cells. So the biggest thing I'm working on now with Ronnie Sharp, who spoke here last year, we're working on this thing with hospital, how to prescribe exercise as medicine, right? Because you can go to your clinic and the doctor asks you, are you exercising? And you'll be like, yeah. And they're like, what are you doing? How much? Okay, great, keep it up. But is there a science behind how much we should be doing, at what intensity, and for how long? That's what we're going to try to figure out. So we're working on it. I will not rest until we know that exercise can be prescribed as medicine. Right now, it's just advice. So yeah, this is Jerry and I finishing in New York last year after our 500-mile ride. And Jerry, I'm sure you guys know of Jerry Cahill. He's turning 60 in June. He's an old New Yorker, old crabby New Yorker who is like my hero. And I looked up to him. When I first started exercising, again, I was like just getting into it. And I met Jerry on these, like, I don't know, back in the early 2000s. Like, I don't know, we didn't have Facebook, so I don't know what it was. Listserv or something. And I found Jerry's story, and I'm like, this guy's like 50, maybe 40 something, and why is he so healthy, right? I'm like, did he have a lung transplant? No. How's he alive? Because exercise. He is the pioneer, or at least the one that I know, that kind of said forever that exercise is extending his life. He was a college pole vaulter, track, just active guy, always bikes, runs, swims, does anything to stay active. And he had a lung transplant 4 years ago at age 55 or 56. So to be able to now ride with him and call him a friend is pretty awesome, that we get to ride 500 miles together, and he's crabby New Yorker, and we get to eat ice cream together and just like really share stories, and he keeps me motivated. It's so cool that you can like spend that much time on a bike. And this year he's turning 60, so why not ride 600 miles instead of 500 miles? So that's what we're doing in September is the California coast. We're gonna ride 600 miles. So again, if you guys don't see or hear from me, call Jerry, because he probably pushed me over the Devil's Pass corner. Yeah, there's something called the Devil's Pass, so I'm a little nervous. But it's just awesome. So he gives me hope, and there's so many younger people out there that are just kicking butt, and it is so fun to watch these guys, like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, high school kids, all over the world, like pro rugby players with CF. It's just so cool. And the fact that the one good thing about social media, one of them, is that you can connect and see these stories and be inspired. And you guys should be so inspired by pioneers like Jerry, because don't tell him I said this, he's awesome. So next slide. Okay, here's where we get real. So my takeaways in my talks are obviously exercise, a positive outlook. I didn't really get into diet, but we can, if you guys want to do a little during the Q&A if we have time, kind of touch about my diet and how that changed along with my starting to exercise, this whole like dietary change, lifestyle change, if you will. That was a buzzword in the 2010s. So clinical trials are the other takeaway. And the reason that we have Casein and Pulmozyme and Toby and Kalydeco, of course, and Orkambi, all these drugs are because of clinical trials. They don't just like magically show up like, here, I got this drug for your child, let's take it. I've been doing clinical trials since I was a kid. I just saw those dollar signs, and I was like, sign me up, because you know you get paid pretty good. You get fat cash with these. And like, what teenager doesn't want to make a little extra dough, huh? The pharmaceutical reps back there. kidding. It is cool. But the other thing is you get to like be a part of history. Crazy, right? Really. So I did the Toby study. I did some zinc studies where you took a zinc pill. That was really cool. Really beneficial. Then the biggest thing, I don't know, maybe when you get a cold, you take some zinc, things are good. A little ginger, maybe some honey mead. I think so. That's why I bought it, for when I'm sick. So this clinical trial that I'm going to talk about has totally changed my life and given me this outlook on life that you guys should be just over the moon about, because awesome things are happening because of this first clinical trial. So I don't know what year it was, 2008. I was at a CF family day at Children's Hospital. I eventually, at age 25, transitioned to adult care. Transition is the hardest thing. It was like getting a divorce from my CF care team and even the lunch ladies at the hospital, okay? My thing with transition wasn't that I wasn't ready to transition. I was already doing my meds by the age 12, but it was leaving everyone. I don't like to say goodbye, so that was the hardest part about it took 25 years. I kept saying I was moving to New York, and they're like, okay. I'm like, no, next year I'm moving to New York. No, next year I'm moving to New York. So they let me stay. And then I left, and it was sad. But I went back for the ed day, and afterward, the CF research nurse ran up to me, and she's like, Em, I think you qualify for this new study. I'm thinking, cool. I've taken a zinc tablet before. I've inhaled Toby back in the day. I'm in. She's like, it's in Cleveland, which is about a 2.5-hour drive, and it's pretty time heavy, where you'll be going down every 7 days at least for this study. I'm like, cool. Again, saw those dollar signs, and I was like, I'm in. Sign me up. So I go down for this phase 2 trial, and it's a pill, right? They're like, here's a pill that you'll take twice a day. Part of the study was they do this nasal NPD thing where they shove a thing up your nose to hear, because did you know there's an electrical charge up here? And it's higher for people with CF. So they shoved this tube up my nose and drained like 3 different syringes through it for about 20 minutes. And you had to hold still and have a face-off with this guy holding this thing up your nose. So that was the most invasive part of any clinical trial I've ever done. But it paid off. Those are great, by the way. Google that, too, NPD. So we do this. I get through this trial, phase 2. I don't see any benefits. My PFDs actually kind of stay the same, and actually at one point I had to go on IVs because I got sick. I'm like, okay, that was cute. Must have been like another zinc thing. And then phase 3 rolls around, and my CF research nurse at my new adult hospital in Michigan says, do you want to be in phase 3? And I'm like, sure. What's the big deal? It's like a little pill I take twice a day. Okay. The difference between phase 2 and phase 3 was phase 3, I was actually on this real drug. At the time, it was VX770, now Kalydeco or Ivacaftor, or the street name Blue Lightning, which Foundation Care does fill it as Blue Lightning. It's crazy. It comes on my prescription as Blue Lightning. No, it doesn't. But I'm thinking maybe we do. It's so much easier than Kalydeco. It's not Kalydeco, it's Kalydeco, okay? Right? Can I get another Kalydeco in the... These are not okay. So here's the deal. I start this drug about December 22nd or 23rd in 2009 or 10. I can't really remember. We have to look back at the studies. But within 4 days of taking this drug, I